Hey guys! And say hello to my cat. Cena, look at the camera. Okay, I just showed you a really bad shot of my room. Oh, it's so messy. I was supposed to clean it, but I figured I would make a YouTube video instead. Haha, priorities! So I have been wanting to make this video for quite literally over a year now. Like, I'm a transfer student, and the second that I found out I was going to an art school, I was like, this is gonna be the perfect video. Yes! And now I could finally tell you guys about my experiences with being an art major at a university versus going to an art school. Because when I was in high school, I was kind of fighting my family on which one I was going to go to, and I ended up trying to do a lot of research to figure out like which one is better, and I couldn't find jack shit. Like, everything online is about whether or not art school, like whether you should go to art school or whether you shouldn't go to art school. And I'm not saying that that isn't a valid argument, and I might get into it, not in this video though. If you want that in this video, click away, because I'm not going to get into that. But in any case, I couldn't find any information whatsoever. I wanted to make this video to speak to you guys out there who might be dealing with this kind of problem. It's like, I need to know which is better, and there's nothing. So I'm here to help you. And from my experience, I spent 3 semesters at UConn as an illustration major, and then I just finished my first semester at Mass Art. The only reason I'm saying these schools right now is because I've already said it online in multiple places, so it didn't make a lot of sense for me to kind of be like, oh, it's a mystery, I can't tell you guys. No, I can't do that. But I'm going to keep this video as objective as possible, mostly for the benefit of the schools in general. I don't want to get an email from Mass Art being like, you said some pretty negative things about us on social media. I don't want that. I don't know if they would do that, but I don't want that to happen if it does. And also, that's not helpful to you guys if I just have a whole bunch of opinions, because you might be leaning towards university, or you might be leaning towards art school, and you just want the facts. I'm gonna give you the facts. I'm gonna give you them right now. The first thing is the application process. It is basically the same thing. You're gonna need a portfolio. If you can go to a portfolio review day, that'd be great. I have a link to that in the description if you want help on portfolio review days. And they're gonna be looking at your grades. The only difference between these things is that a university is going to put a little bit more focus on your grades, and an art school is going to put a little more focus on your portfolio. That is not to say that an art school is okay with having really shitty grades, and that's not to say that a university isn't looking for a stellar portfolio. But if you're one of those art kids that just can't do school, math and science don't work, history doesn't work, you're just struggling, you're going to find it a little bit easier to get into an art school, because they really are just focusing on the talent, you know? And for a university, that is something that you need to consider. And for those of you who are applying and you really are scared that your grades aren't going to be good enough to get you into the school, just focus on your portfolio. That is honestly the number one thing, because that is what you're going to get into for your major. That's what all schools are going to be looking at the most. Focus on that portfolio. So now you've made it into the school. What's your freshman year looking like? They are both very similar in that they're going to like make you do a lot of basic core classes, basic freshman classes. My camera is moving a lot because I'm trying to hold it with my phone, and my cat is moving my hand. So yeah, did you hear that? She says hi. So that stuff is similar, but the difference is a university is going to make you do a lot more core classes. We're talking humanities, science, math, etc. Pretty much your entire stay there. Obviously, you're going to be spending the most time in the art room because that's your major, but you're going to be spending a lot of time doing other liberals and stuff. And those liberal classes, you can easily take the easy ones, like the freshman, sophomore level classes, that's fine. But they're going to teach you like they would teach any other person. Science, math, history, whatever. Whereas at an art school, you know, they have science classes, they have history classes and stuff, but it's all geared a little bit more towards their target audience, which is art students. So, for example, you can do an art project as like your midterm in a science class, whereas at a university, you're just expected to take a test. You know what I mean? And that might be different based on different art schools and stuff, but a university for sure, they're going to treat everyone the same. This is not to say that, oh, it's so annoying having all of these extra classes, because when I was at UConn, I had to take a whole bunch of different history classes, a lot of classes I never would have taken if you had told me just pick whatever you want. But my kind of worldview changed a lot because of the classes that I took. I learned a lot about histories of certain cultures that are very like sensitive subjects in today's world, and I learned more about their history, so I understand why these conflicts exist today. Became very interested in other subjects, and it was also, honestly, it was just a really nice break to get away from the art room and to go study something. Like, it gave my mind something different to do. But I also know plenty of art students who they can't stand their liberal arts classes and they just kind of slack off in those classes because they're more focused on art. Depends on how you are as a student, to be perfectly honest, but I'm just giving you the heads up. University, more humanities kind of classes. Next, I'm going to talk about community because this is very different. At an art school, the communities are very tightly knit. There's way more art students obviously in an art school than you're going to see at a university. There's more people, and you would think that would mean a bigger community, but that's actually not the case. Art schools are very divided based on major. Freshman year, not so much because everyone's new and everyone's just trying to learn each other. But once you really start getting into your major, which starts sophomore year, people tend to only talk to and hang out with the people in their major. One person, one administrator, refer to them as silos. Like, the majors just do not talk to each other like at all, which means that there are very tight-knit communities, and if you're a part of that community, it's wonderful, and that's just how it is. If you go to a university, there are not many people, period. So what ends up happening is the majors are so tiny that you can't help but make friends with people in other majors and other art majors because there's just no one else to talk to. So this is not a bad thing, this is not a good thing, I'm just saying that's a thing that exists. Professors are more or less the same. At both art schools and at universities, you're going to find a ton of amazing, experienced, professional professors, and there's going to be a few bad eggs. Don't go into this thinking that art schools have better professors than universities do, because that is not necessarily the case. There are plenty of art schools with bad professors, plenty of art universities with good professors. The biggest difference, though, is that obviously in university there's a lot less of them. So once you get deeper and deeper into your major, you're going to find that there's only a few, maybe even only one professor that you're going to have for all your classes. Whereas at an art school, it doesn't matter how deep you go, there's still going to be like, 10 to 20 professors that you can pick from. So there's more options. Next up are resources. For a university, they're not going to have many art-specific resources for you because a university is essentially a big high school. They have so much money and they're going to divide it between arts and sciences and humanities, etc. And whenever there's a budget cut, they're going to cut from the arts and give to the sciences and the sports. That is just how life is, okay? So they're not going to have as much for you as an art school would, which has 100% of its money going towards the students. Art schools are going to have more in terms of printing. They're going to have more visiting artists. They're going to have more alumni that you can reach out to. They have better and more figure drawing models. They have more technology for students to use. They have more galleries to use. Like, just above and beyond, art schools are going to have way more for you as a student than a university is going to have. But what universities have that art schools don't have is outside communities, outside of art, and they have resources when it comes to lifestyle. So a university is going to have more dining halls, more housing options. They're going to have more majors that you can pick from in case maybe you decide that art isn't your thing and you want to do something else. They're going to have more minor options for you. They're going to have a bigger career center because they're helping way more students. I could go on. They also have a lot more diversity in terms of students and in, I guess, social life. Like at an art school, at least the one that I go to, outside of the classes, there really isn't a lot to do. They only have a few clubs, and I mean it, a few clubs, and they're all related to art. They only have one sports team. If you're really into sports, that's not really a thing. And it just kind of goes on from there. And there aren't really cultural communities. They just have like one all-cultural community. Whereas if you go to a major university, they have hundreds of clubs. Hundreds. In a million different things. They have tons of sports. They have cultural centers for anything you want. It's pretty freaking diverse. There's just more students, so of course it's going to be more diverse. So that's really nice, and it gets you to meet people who aren't in your major, and you get to talk to people with different experiences from you, and it's just very nice. Whereas in an art school, it is very, very focused on art 24/7. And it depends on who you are as a person. Some people like to talk to people who are very different from them and kind of get a break from art, you know. Other people are just like, I just want to be in the art bubble and stay there. And that is fine too. It depends on just who you are. You gotta know who you are as a person. Another thing is cost. A university is going to be significantly cheaper than an art school. Art schools generally range between $40,000 and $60,000 a year, whereas a university you can get as cheap as like $20,000 a year. So think about how much you're willing to spend for school. That being said, with the prices, there are not nearly as many art schools as there are universities in the US. I don't know about other schools or other countries, but in the US, that's definitely a thing. Geographically, you might be in a state that has no art schools. If you live in Montana, I don't even know of any art school in Montana. I am lucky, I am fortunate to live in the Northeast, which has places like SVA or Cooper Union or RISD or MassArt or a lot of these other places, Mecca, Micah, I mean, there's tons of them, right? But you might literally be somewhere where there's just not that many options for you to go visit. So that's another thing to consider, is can you even get to the school that you want to go to? But if you go for a university, there might technically be more options, but you need to be careful with what university you're going for. You have to really look at the art department. UConn has an exceptionally good art department for what it is. The student body, for as small as it was, it had like a pretty insane percentage of students that got grants or got major art awards. So it was a really good place. But if you're looking at art universities, you gotta look at everything. You gotta study a little bit more to make sure you're getting into a good place. So those are the pros and cons of that. When I already said this a little bit, but in terms of switching majors, if you're someone who isn't 100% sure that you want to go into art, maybe go for university, at least until you've made your decision, and then you can transfer if you want. If you are 100% sure that art is your thing, you might not need to go to a university because, you know, it's gonna be focused on a lot of other things that aren't exactly what you want to do. So just putting it out there. And then also in terms of minors, there's way more minors at a university than at an art school, but at art school you can minor in cool minors, you know, like glass blowing, whereas a university is not going to have that. You know, they're very limited. And then another thing is the type of art style that you see. An art university or just university is going to be a little bit more fine art spaced. That may have just been where I went to. I don't know if that's the same, and definitely once you get more into your majors that might change. For example, as an illustration major, it was very hardcore fine arts for the first couple of years, and then it definitely transitions more into current illustration, whereas it seems like at an art school they're just more focused on style, more current things, less fine arty. However, that again, that's also just mass art. There are plenty of other art schools that are very fine arts focused all the time, all 4 years. So you have to look at that. And that leads me into pretty much my last point, I think, which is, okay, Biana, I'm looking now. It's January. I've got my application sent, or whatever time of year you're watching this video. How do I make the decision? How do I know which one is right for me? You need to consider cost. You need to consider any scholarships that you receive. Those are really important, guys. Try not to get into crazy debt. And also really take a look at what the graduating students are producing. If you like what the seniors made in the past few years, that's good, because that means that the professors are gearing them towards things that you like to do. If the work that you're seeing isn't really like your thing, if it's maybe too fine arty for you, if it's not fine arty enough, then that's something to consider. And also, it's definitely worth it to do some research on the professors and find out, like, are they still actively working today? You know, who are they? What is their art like? That's also really important. And then last but not least, just make sure you do your research. Visit the campuses if you can, see if you like the feel of it. Look at the statistics, see how many students are earning grants and scholarships and rewards and stuff. See how successful the students are when they graduate. You just have to take a real hard look at your options and really take a look and see what's right for you. It all just boils down to who you are. If you need more help, if you're kind of between certain things, or if you want more specific information about UConn or Mass Art because you happen to be like me and those are your options, you can always leave a comment down below and I will get to them, because this is definitely something that like I'm very sensitive towards, because I've been struggling with higher education for a while now, like getting into college, or not getting into college, more like the initial college application process was very rough for me when I was in high school, and then I ended up having to transfer. So if I can help you guys make your lives a little bit easier, I'm going to do that because I want better for you. So that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else. As per usual, I'm going to make the little announcement. Hey, if you want to check out my artwork, you can see me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Tumblr. They are Biana Bova for all of them. I'll leave links in the description. Always, you guys can chat with me in the comments. I'm usually there reading, if not commenting back. And I believe that is everything. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys!